Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 11. Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj. Text 17. Nimittamatram tatrasin nirgunaha purusharshabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava Nimitta Matram Tatrasin Nirguna Purushar Sabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Jatra Bhramati Lohava Nimitta Matram Tatrasin Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Jatra Bhramati Lohava Nimitta Matram Tatrasin Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Jatra Bhramati Lohava
Nimitta matram tatrasi Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyaktamidam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava
Nimitta matram tatrasi Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyakta Vyaktamidam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava Nimitta matram tatrasi Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava Nimitta matram tatrasi Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava
Nimitta matram tatrasin Nirguna Purusha Sabha Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava
Matajis.
Nimitta matram tatrasin Nirguna Purusha Shabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava Nimitta matram tatrasin Nirguna Purushar Shabha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishwam Yatra Bhramati Lohava
Nimitta Matram, remote cause. Tatra, then. Asit, was. Nirgunaha, uncontaminated. Purusha Rishabha, the Supreme Person. Vyakta, manifested. Abhyaktam, unmanifested. Idam, this. Vishwam, world. Jatra, where. Brahmati moves. Lohabat like iron. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When He gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. Please repeat after me. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When He gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced. And thus, the whole universe moves. Just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. How the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead works within this material world is explained in this verse. Everything is happening by the energy of the Supreme Lord. The atheistic philosophers who do not agree to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the original cause of creation think that the material world moves by the action and reactions of different material elements. A simple example of the interaction of elements occurs when we mix soda and acid, and the interaction of soda and acid and the movement of effervescent is produced. But one cannot produce life by such interaction of chemicals. There are 8,400,000 different species of life with different wishes and different actions. How the material force is working cannot be explained just on the basis of chemical reaction. A suitable example in this connection is that of the potter and the potter's wheel. The potter's wheel rotates and the several varieties of earthen pots come out. There are many causes for the earthen pots, but the original cause is the potter, who sets a force on the wheel. The force comes by his superintendence. The same idea is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Behind all material action and reactions there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says that everything depends on his energy, and yet he is not everywhere. The pot is produced under certain conditions of actions and reactions of material energy. But the potter is not in the pot. In a similar way, the material creation is set up by the Lord, but He remains aloof, as stated in the Vedas. He simply glanced over it, and the agitation of matter immediately began. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that the Lord impregnates the material energy with the part and parcel jivas, and thus the different forms and different activities immediately ensue. Because of the different desires and karmic activities of the jiva soul, different types of bodies and different species are produced. In Darwin's theory, there is no acceptance of the living entity as spirit soul, and therefore his explanation of evolution is incomplete. Varieties of phenomena occur within this universe on account of the actions and reactions of the three main modes of material nature. But the original creator or the cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is mentioned here as Nimitta Matram, the remote cause. He simply pushes the will with his energy. According to the Mayavadi philosophers, The Supreme Brahman has transformed himself into many varieties of forms, but that is not the fact. He is always transcendental to the actions and reactions of the material gunas, although he is the cause of all causes. Lord Brahma says therefore in Brahma Samhita 5.1, Ishvaraha Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. There are many causes and effects, but the original cause is Sri Krishna. Nimitta matram tatrasin nirguna purushar shabaha bhakta bhaktamidam visham jatra brahmati lohavat. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When he gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. So, Swayambhuva Manu is instructing Dhruva Maharaj. What is his instruction? His instruction is that why are you getting so involved? Thinking, just reacting to certain happening. Your brother has been killed, and you started to kill all the jakshas. Just consider, just for one person's death, you are killing so many other living entities, so many of them. So he came to stop Dhruva Maharaj, and he started to give him this advice. And his advice are so profound. We are seeing, like he is explaining that everything happens by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like nothing happens just by chance. Your brother died, there must be a cause. There are various causes. Immediate cause is his karma. When somebody dies or when something happens to somebody, it is not just an accidental phenomenon. It happens because of his immediate cause is his karmic reactions. In the material nature, everything is by the karmic reactions. And then, beyond the karmic reaction, there is the influence of the modes of material nature. And these modes of material nature are being controlled by different demigods. Mode of goodness is controlled by Vishnu. Mode of passion is controlled by Lord Brahma. And mode of ignorance is controlled by Lord Shiva. And then there are other demigods. Indra, Chandra, Varun. So for example, due to your action, you are supposed to get a lot of money. So who makes the arrangement for the money? Lakshmi Devi. Due to your karma, you are supposed to get a very good position. Some demigods make the arrangements. Due to your karmic reaction, you are supposed to have some material facilities. Those material facilities come in the form of the arrangement of the demigods. Karmana Daiva Netrena. Daiva Netrena. Daiva means divine. Netrena means eyes. Just as we see with our eyes, the demigods see with their eyes. their eyes, their seeing is much broader. Just like we can consider what will be the vision of an ant, how much can the ant see? Ant's perception will be very, very little. But a man's perception is much bigger, inconceivable for the ant. He is seeing the ants are moving. He is seeing ants are carrying some grains of food, storing it for winter. He sees the ants are fighting over some grains. He's saying, this is my grain. He said, no, this is my grain. So in this way, the ants are fighting, and how does the man look at it? He says, oh, these are antly affairs. So similarly, the demigods are seeing us, tiny little ants, not even as significant as an ant, completely insignificant from their perspective. And beyond the demigods, and these supreme controllers of the modes of material nature, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here it is saying, here Swayambhuva Manu is saying that Supreme Personality of Godhead, although He is the cause of all causes, but He doesn't get affected by the modes of material nature, by the affairs of the material nature. The modes of material nature influence us, those who are in this material nature, but the controller of the material nature doesn't get affected by the modes of material nature, which is natural. Some beautiful examples Prabhupada gave here. Like Prabhupada gives an example here about the pot maker, the potter, and the pots. The potter, what does the potter do? Have you seen how the pots are made? How many of you have seen? Okay. They put a clay. They prepare the clay and they put the clay on a wheel. And then he makes the wheel rotate. In one hand he makes the wheel rotate, and with the other hand he gives the shape of the pot. And when the pot is made, he takes a thin piece of rope, thread, and then he cuts it with that thread. He just holds the thread and the pot is rotating and he moves the thread. A nice big earthen pot came out. And then he puts it into fire. And then it becomes strong. It becomes solid pot. Now, is the potter a part of the pot? Is the potter the part of the wheel? So the wheel, the clay, the pot, they're of another dimension. And whereas the potter is standing aside, but he is making the pots, giving the shape to the pots. That is his situation. So, in a similar way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead sets the material creation in motion. Of course, a potter touches with his hand to make the pot. It's just an example. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead makes things happen just by his glance. He doesn't touch anything with his hand. He may, if he wants to, just like he lifted Govardhan Hill. A small little hill, to lift, he lifted it with his own hand. But does he need to touch the hill with his hand? Does he need to do that? No. But it's just out of his leela, just out of his pastime, he is doing that because he is performing the pastime as a human being, as a cowherd boy. In this Braja Leela, he is not acting like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he acted like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he would have just glanced at Govardhan Hill and said, Govardhan, get up. And immediately Govardhan would have got up and made room for the cowherd people to come and take shelter. But he is playing his pastimes. Touched his hand. Touched the hill with his hand. But as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can do things with his remote influence. He is not here in the material nature. He glanced from the spiritual sky. He glanced from his own situation, lying in the causal ocean. And that is Mahavishnu, Karanodakshai Vishnu. And he glanced towards the material nature, Maya, Prakriti. And as it has been described, Maya became agitated. Maya was in an inert stage. Now, due to his glance, Maya became active. That is the meaning of Maya becoming agitated by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He glanced, Shra Oikshata. Ikshan means glance. And Oikshata means he glanced. Saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He glanced and the whole creation became manifest. So, that is his way of doing things. He doesn't have to touch anything with his own hand. It's not that like a potter makes the pot he kind of created. This is the universe rotating in the wheel. No. Just by his glance, he makes things happen. Another example Prabhupada gave in some other places, like a prison and the king. The prison is in the kingdom of the king, but does the king get involved in the prison affairs? In the day-to-day affairs of the prison, does the king get involved? No. He made his arrangement. Okay, you are in charge of the prison house. Right? That, what is it called? The prison warden. Or maybe he can make another thing, like prison ministry. The government's department is the ministry, the first. They kind of make arrangements of all the prisons. Okay, prison ministry decides. So many states are there and so many prisons should be made in so many states. And then they appoint the prison warden, main person in the prison. He is in charge, superintendent of the prison. And above them, of course, there is one person who is the main person who is taking care of all the prisons of the state. Then in the prison house there are so many departments, and those departments are manned by so many other people. And then there are prisoners. So does the king get directly involved? No. This prison affair is his external energy. His internal energy is his ministry. The king is sitting on his court, taking care of so many affairs of the state. And and then the ultimate consideration is his own palace. His palace again is different from the court. In the court, he takes care of the management. But when he goes to the palace, does he palace manage the palace affairs? No, that is the affair of the queen, the real boss. The household affairs are controlled by the wife. The husband doesn't get involved in that. And so similarly, there is material nature. What is the material nature? The material nature is the prison house. What is the royal affairs of the king? Vaikuntha. The king of kings, the supreme personality of Godhead. And what is the palace of the king? The Andar Mahal? Golok, Vrindavan. And there the king is not the controller. Radharani is the controller. So in this way we can see how the Supreme Personality of Godhead has his way of doing things. Now material affair, he is not interested. He just glanced and set it in motion. And now the different demigods are controlling that. And then ultimately Mahamaya, material nature, personification of the material nature. And then he is taking care of all the spiritual management from Vaikuntha. And what is spiritual management? Spiritual management is not like material management, controlling different things, like making arrangements. Spiritual arrangement is actually loving relationship. Generally, living entities are his servants, and he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in Vaikuntha, that is the mood. All the living entities, all the associates of the Lord, they are his servants, and they are serving him in various ways. And by doing their service, by rendering their service, they are enjoying. The Lord is enjoying by accepting their service, and the devotees are enjoying by offering their service. Everybody is engaged in their service. And when he goes to his Andar Mahal, when he goes to Golok Vrindavan, there that loving exchange is even more intense. It's not like servant and master loving relationship. It is an exchange of love. It is just an exchange of love. And in that loving relationship, his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not so prominent. Like the king, when he goes to his palace and he deals with his wife, does the wife deal with him like a king, like he is the king? The wife deals with him like, you are my husband. His children, do they deal with him like a king? The children deal with him like their father. So this is how in the spiritual sky different living entities are interacting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There somebody is like that is also another there in now leads to another consideration. This palace is actually not Vrindavan. the palace is Dwarka. There he has his queens. There he has his children. And they are dealing with him in a certain way. But even beyond that, there is another region where the king is not seen as the king. Although in Dwarka, in the palace, the queens know that he is the king. Children know that although he is the father, but he is the king. So that awareness that he is the king is there in Dwarka. But in Vrindavan, that awareness is also not there. They don't care whether he is king or not. Their mood is, you are my friend. Their mood is, you are my most, dearmost object of love. So that is Vrindavan. So, in Vrindavan, Krishna is not God. That's the difference. In Dwarka, although these relationships are there, a husband-wife relationship, father-son relationship, like parent-children relationship, friendship, like these are there, but those relationships are on the basis of the awareness that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Dwarka they have that awareness. But in Vrindavan that awareness is not there. They don't consider that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their consideration is that you are the dearmost object of our love. You are my friend. You are my son. Not you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and you are my son. Like that is called Oisharjo. Oisharja means opulence. Shithil. Shithil means loosened, weakened, prem. Love in Vaikuntha and all the way up to Dwarka has been weakened by this mood of awe and reverence, due to opulence. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although you are my son, but actually you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in Vrindavan that feeling is not there. Because in Vrindavan there is no consideration that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are my friend. You are my son. You are my lover. So that is the prerogative of Vrindavan. Anyway, here we are not going that far in this particular shlok. Here the consideration is how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is aloof from everything. What Swayambhuva Manu is pointing out, that why are you getting so worked up? Why not see that this has happened due to the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Of course, there is another way of looking at it also. The Supreme Personality of Godhead wanted Dhruva Maharaj to kill all the Jakshas. And now that mission has been accomplished, Swayambhuva Manu is pacifying him. Okay, business has been done, now cool down. So in this way, ultimately we can see that everything happens due to the divine arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasa. So the intelligent thing is to realize that and act accordingly. Become an instrument in the hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Don't become the doer, but become the medium. That is the difference. I am the doer. Kartaham iti mannate. I am the controller. I am the doer. Karta. But actually I am not the doer. I am simply the medium through whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead is making things happen. But the problem in the material nature is that because we have denied the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because we are thinking that we are the doers, we have become subjected to this arrangement of guna and karma. If we surrender ourselves to Krishna, surrender means, an example in that respect has been given, is like that of a puppet. A puppet is dancing. The puppet is dancing. We say puppet is dancing. But is the puppet dancing? It is the puppeteer who is making him dance by pulling the strings. So in the ultimate issue, we have to recognize that we are like the puppets, and Krishna is making us dance in different roles. So that is the ultimate consideration. And when we submit to Krishna completely and act as an instrument in his hands, then we become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. Then there is no more influence of the modes of material nature. Then we will become free from the modes. Therefore, the ultimate consideration of freedom from material bondage is to surrender to Krishna. What does the word surrender mean? Does the surrender mean that I am the doer and you are nobody? Is that surrender? Or surrender means you do whatever you want to do with me. I have no independence. I don't have any independence. I am not the doer, you are the doer. And I'll do whatever you want me to do. And yes, you made the arrangements for the modes, I'll function accordingly. If you are pulling the string this way, my hand will go this way. If you pull the string this way, my hand will go this way. No resistance from my part. False ego, what does the false ego do? False ego creates the resistance. Krishna is saying, pulling the string, I want a hand to go this way, and we are pulling it in this way. That is the conditioning of the living entity. Krishna wants things to happen in a certain way, and we are trying to make things happen according to our way. We are not listening to what Krishna wants. We are simply caught up with our own plan, our sense gratification. I want it this way. Krishna says, go this way, and I said, no, I will go this way. Krishna says, do this. We say, no, I will do this. So that is the conditioning of the living entities in the material nature. So what is the important thing to do? What is the intelligent thing to do? Surrender to Krishna. Karishe bachanantama. This illusion that I am the doer, that is the illusion. Now that illusion is gone, I am not the doer. So that's what Swayambhuva Manu is pointing out to Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva recognized that you are an instrument in the hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So act accordingly. And then what happens? Then everything happens in such a wonderful way. Who can do things better than Krishna? When Krishna takes charge, when Krishna gets things done, that's perfect. And the wonderful thing is, when Krishna takes charge, then victory is assured. We'll win. At the end, Krishna will win. So if we act on Krishna's behalf, we will win. Does anybody want to lose? No. We all want to win. Now, there may be some immediate opposition. There is some apparent defeat. But that doesn't matter. The ultimate victory is the consideration. What's the point in winning for 5 minutes? But then being attacked and losing. So ultimate victory is what really matters. And that ultimate victory will be there when we act on behalf of Krishna, because Krishna will ultimately make all the arrangements. Like we can see, the Pandavas have gone through so many difficulties. So many difficulties. At the young age, they lost their father. Then they were brought up to the palace. They were treated so badly. Duryodhana tried to kill them even as little children. Their wife was insulted so badly. So these were happening. But ultimately what happened? Who won? Pandavas won. Therefore, these apparent defeats, apparent difficulties are not so important. The ultimate victory is what really matters. And what's the ultimate victory? The ultimate victory is going to be at the time of death. Going back to Godhead. Whatever happens to us in this, when we are alive in this material nature, is only secondary consideration. And the ultimate consideration is, at the time of death, we have to remember Krishna, and then we can go back to the spiritual sky. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande. Does anybody have any question?
I have a couple of questions. First is, it's explained here how Krishna is aloof from the material nature. Material nature works according to certain laws. Now, this appears to be a little like something like karma mimamsa philosophy, because Krishna doesn't interfere with the laws of material nature. He's something like a, just like a sanctioner to whatever happens in material nature. Even sometimes even devotees may face certain reactions. So Krishna doesn't interfere, so to speak. But if he interferes, then how is he aloof? Then he's not aloof. So how do we understand the apparent? That if he's aloof, then he's like kind of the laws of material nature are themselves controlling everything.
In a way, that is the thing. Like you see, karma mimamsa. The problem with karma mimamsa, the karma mimamsa has this positive, real understanding. The karma, as you act, as you sow, so shall you act. That is the basic principle of karma mimamsa, right? As you sow, so shall you act. Krishna is not involved in that. He is impartial. He is not saying that I want you to enjoy or I want you to suffer. That is not Krishna's way of looking at things. Krishna's thing is, okay, you want to enjoy? Go ahead. Go to the material nature. And you will see yourself what this desire for enjoyment will lead you to. You think you are going to enjoy, go there and see. Now, for making the living entity go through that experience of acting independently, Krishna made this arrangement. Guna, karma. And things are happening just by guna and karma. Krishna is not involved in that. So that is the law that governs the affairs of the material nature. You get it?
And you spoke about surrender. The thing is to want to do what Krishna wills or to accept Krishna's will. That is the philosophy and that's the ideal which we know. But being on a practical level, because we are still, in the conditioning of material nature, therefore it doesn't come from the heart because sometimes there is resistance from within the heart, and there is, we have to accept that also sometimes that we are, in the sense that at least we have to deal with it. Not that we shouldn't surrender, but when these feelings go against things that are happening, then how do we deal with it in a way that doesn't that also keeps us peaceful and keeps us on the path, so that ultimately we can one day come to the path of full surrender. So in the meantime, how do we deal with the feelings or with the things which are not very conducive that come from within?
Yeah. Well, the first consideration here is that the surrender has to be unconditional. If it is conditional, then it must surrender. If so many conditions are implied, I will surrender if you do this. I will surrender to you if you pay me a certain amount of money every month. That is not surrender, but that is one step towards that ultimate surrender. Not hard. After all, you are surrendering to Krishna, even though conditionally. But when through this surrender you realize that how you are actually benefiting, right? Then that becomes unconditional. You get the point? Like initially there may be, I want this condition to be fulfilled, I want that condition to be fulfilled. Or Krishna give me this. Like it is also a kind of surrender I'm asking to Krishna. It's some sort of surrender. But this is conditional surrender. The unconditional surrender is no matter what, whether I enjoy or suffer, whether I get anything or not, I will surrender unto you. That is the ultimate consideration of unconditional surrender. But this unconditional surrender also is not blind. Like blind in the sense, you see, man or a living entity doesn't do anything without being motivated. The motivation is always the guiding factor. So this motivation, when one is motivated by seeing that by this surrender he is going to benefit no matter what, then he stops making these conditions. Krishna, when he sees, just like when you go to a distant person and make surrender to him, then you make conditions because you don't trust him. You say that, well, I'll do it for you, but sign a contract that you will do this. I'll do this job and you'll pay me so much money. Signing a contract. But when you recognize that this person is your real well-wisher, then you don't feel like writing a contract. When you see that this person is your dearest friend, when you're dealing with your friend, do you write a contract? Sign a contract? No. So that is the meaning of being surrender being unconditional. No more mistrust, complete faith, complete trust that you are my supreme well-wisher. Okay.
Thank you for a wonderful class. I had two questions. That first question is that in this series of verses, Manu told many teachings to Guru Maharaj, and he told that a devotee should behave exemplary also. So, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says this, that dharma sansthapan hetu sadhu vyavahar. So, what are the basic tenets of good behavior?
Lord Chaitanya said what?
That regarding Madhavendra, he told once that dharma sansthapan hetu sadhu vyavahar.
Okay.
So, what are the basic tenets of good behavior for which a devotee should aspire?
The thing is, first consideration is that it should be based on devotion to Krishna. That is the main consideration. When you act due to your attachment and love for Krishna, that is the perfect Vaishnava behavior. Right?
Second question is, you mentioned that spiritual management is based on loving relationship between Lord and his devotee, and this material management means based on controlling others. So in initial stages, we do not perceive the management as spiritual. We often comes in that zone of controlling other person. So how to perceive basically that it is spiritual management, not the material management?
Because ultimately, is it, differentiating is that ultimately the person who is managing, is he doing it for his own benefit, or he is doing it for the benefit of the institution, benefit of Krishna consciousness, benefit of Krishna? That is the way you discriminate between material management and spiritual management. Like for example, when you go and take up a job, right? Like at that time, do you have any doubt that this person, whatever he is doing, is for his own benefit? Or is he doing charity by giving you a job? He is doing a charity? If you don't perform, do you think he'll pay you? If he can't make, when he is paying you 1,000 rupees, and if he cannot make 1 lakh rupees, do you think he's going to keep you? So that is his intention. Whatever he is doing is for his personal benefit. But when you come to the temple and see how the devotees are acting, then do you see that the devotees are doing it for their own benefit or for the benefit of the others? So that is what makes the difference. That is what makes it spiritual. Okay, quite a few questions came from Okay, the first one, Skandarpa Sundari Dasi. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. We can't wait to see you in Sydney. Well, very nice question. Okay, yes, I am also waiting to go there and see you all. Hare Krishna. Next one, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. It's mandatory to be totally submissive, but at the same time, one should be intelligent enough to not to get exploited. How to discriminate that, whether we are surrendering in a right way or simply following someone fanatically? Yes, that's exactly what we discussed just now, that we have to see the motivation of the person you are surrendering to. Is he guiding you, or is he engaging you for his benefit or for Krishna's benefit? Yes, and you use your intelligence. If the person is engaging you in the service for his own benefit, then don't surrender. Unless you have to. Like when you get a job, like although you know that he is exploiting you, but you allow yourself to be exploited. Because you need money. So they are taking advantage of it and exploiting you. But if a devotee does that, then don't allow it to happen. Devotee is a leader in spiritual platform is the one who is engaging you for Krishna's sake and for your spiritual benefit. How does three modes of material nature give liberation? Your humble servant Ramananda Kanai Das. Then, okay, there are two questions. Another one is Dayalu Bitov Badash. How can we remove this enjoyable tendency? How can we get rid of the tendency to enjoy? Okay, the first one is how three modes of material nature give liberation. Three modes of material nature doesn't give you liberation. Their business is to tie you down here. So, gunas, rope. These ropes are meant to tie you down. What gives you liberation is surrender to Krishna. When you surrender to Krishna, then these shackles automatically fall off. And you become free. Material modes will never give you liberation. Especially when you are in mode of ignorance or passion. Goodness is the only thing that leads you out of this cycle of material engagement, material involvement. Allows you to stand aside. And then only you can become situated in pure devotional service. Tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhodayashchaji. Rajogun, tamogun is simply tying you down to the material nature. Cheto etoir anabiddham stitang shatte prasidati. When the consciousness becomes influenced by, when one becomes situated in stitang shatte, becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then only he can consider becoming free from this bondage of this material nature.